Hello and welcome back to my simple channel. I'm Simply Dave, and today I'm going to go over some of my Gen Z nostalgia. My generation these days is starting to get pretty old. We are graduating high school and we are doing adult things. And as someone who just recently graduated high school and recently has become an adult, I'd figure it's time to look back on the things that made me happy as a child and see the potential parallels for nostalgia with someone like, say, a millennial. Reason I bring that up is because something that makes me nostalgic is probably something that shouldn't make someone born in my generation nostalgic. Now let's get started with that, shall we? First thing I'd like to mention are, of course, cartoons. What cartoons were I growing up with back in the duh? Honestly, if I named every single one of them, we'd be here for a while, but I'll give some highlights, if you will. As I've mentioned in the past, Danny Phantom is my #1 show, which is pretty odd for me as a Gen Z kid, because that show did end in 2007 when I was the ripe age of 2 years old. How I grew up with Danny Phantom, though, was I played a lot of PlayStation 2, and I mean a lot of PlayStation 2. I would go to the GameStop with my grandpa almost every single day to pick out a new game for my PlayStation 2, which means that I was subject to the Nickelodeon crossovers that they made back in the duh. And those crossovers were my main exposure to Danny Phantom. They were also my main exposure to things like Fairly Odd Parents, Jimmy Neutron, and even the Tack of Power of Juju. Does anyone even fucking remember that show? Now, I also got my Danny Phantom kicks, as well as kicks to some other shows, were those Nick Picks DVDs. The Nick Picks DVDs were essentially a sampler for all of the Nickelodeon shows that were running at the time of those DVDs releases. And those DVDs are how I know of very obscure shows like The X's. I'm not kidding, that was actually a thing. So yeah, that whole era of Nickelodeon is basically my nostalgic Nickelodeon. I still go back and watch those shows because, well, I love them and they make me nostalgic, and the things that air on Nickelodeon today suck! I, of course, grew up on Cartoon Network as well. Now, I grew up on the actual things that you would expect a Gen Z kid to grow up on, the 2010 shows. Shows like Adventure Time and Regular Show and Steven Universe. Although even then, I did watch my fair share of older shows thanks to the Boomerang block. Boomerang, at least back when I used to watch it, was a channel that you had to pay separately for, like Nicktoons. And Boomerang aired a lot of Powerpuff Girls and a lot of Dexter's Laboratory, sometimes Samurai Jack, but that part was more uncommon. And it was thanks to Boomerang and thanks to Nicktoons as well that I was able to watch the older shows for both of those channels' networks. As for my gaming experience, my main source of nostalgia is my PlayStation 2, because oh my god, the PlayStation 2 might just be the king of all video game consoles. I played everything on that thing, like literally everything. One of the main things that I played on it was Sonic the Hedgehog, which is a franchise that I still keep up with to this very day. Everything Sonic PS2 related was owned by me, from Sonic Heroes to Sonic Mega Collection Plus, all the way to Shadow the Hedgehog, the greatest video game of all time. And as a kid, I owned a lot of Sonic plushies, thanks to going to Toys R Us and buying the ones that were made by Jazzwares. This also means I grew up at a time when Jazzwares was doing their absolutely legendary Sonic 20th Anniversary collection. And it was because of those rare but fun trips to Toys R Us that I was able to get my hands on a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog merchandise, all the way from big plushes that I've sadly lost to some smaller plushes. Now, I probably know where some of these things are, but there's only one thing that I know where it is, and it actually has an interesting story. It's my Jazzwares Shadow the Hedgehog plush. Now, how I got it, I'm not even 100% certain. I either bought it like a normal person, or I had this friend, ? He offered to trade me something for his Shadow Shadow the Hedgehog plush, and I think I accepted it. Again, I'm not 100% sure. This was in fucking kindergarten or first grade, so... But yeah, I had him, and man... he went through a lot. For starters, I had this neighborhood friend of mine who I would go to her house and I would, do kid shit. Like set up play dates and things of that nature. And one of my many, many things that I would obviously bring to her house was my holy grail, my Shadow the Hedgehog plush. And I remember one day I went back home and all of a sudden I realized that my Shadow plush was gone. So obviously I went back to her house and I asked her, hey, where is it? And she said that she didn't know. So she went back in her house after telling me this information, and I'm just like, well, crud, I guess Oh, there at the far corner of her porch was my Shadow the Hedgehog plush in a place where I definitely did not leave him. Now, as a naive kid, all I did was just get giddy and take him home, but if I was in that situation now, I probably wouldn't associate with that person anymore because she tried to steal my Shadow the Hedgehog plush, and then all of a sudden, losing my Shadow the Hedgehog plush became the biggest theme with it. I remember times when I would find this dude in the most random of places, from the basement in the disgusting sewage drain pipe all the way to in the fucking rose bush at the side of my house. And then one time I eventually lost him and I just gave up on it. And then I'm not even joking, nearly a decade later, I decided to clean out my closet. And guess who I find in one of the random boxes that was shoved in there and probably stayed in there for the past 8 or so years? The one, the only, Jazzwares Shadow the Hedgehog plush. My plush from my childhood. These days, Shadow is going nowhere. I am not losing him for another upteenth time. Photos you've been seeing of him throughout this video are current. They are ones that I took specifically for the purposes of this video, and he is in my possession forever. He is not going anywhere. When I move, he is coming with me. He is going to be put in a very special box wrapped with shit tons of bubble wrap and everything of the sort. These days, I don't really collect Sonic plush like I used to, but I do have a few left over from when I collected a lot of the GE ones, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. Look at this poor classic Sonic. He's got a stain on his eye that I don't even know if I can remove, and of course, I chopped off his stitching to keep his pose together, because honestly, I'm not sure why GE did that. I think that was a bad move on their part. Also, these days, my favorite Sonic character has changed. It's not Shadow anymore, it's Knuckles, and if I had to say my holy grail of Knuckles plushes, it's this. I really hope that I gather enough money to get this one day. Or, of course, someone generous could give it to me, I don't know. But yeah, that's about all when it comes to this video and Gen Z nostalgia. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to do the 3 holy grails of YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you later. Bye! Hey y'all, hope you enjoyed that video on Gen Z nostalgia. It was kind of fun to look back at all the times that Shadow left me. I've been on a hot streak of videos doing decent these days, and I hope that this one can also do decent, but if it doesn't, I guess that's fine. Oh god, I'm starting to think like a YouTuber. Oh god, oh god. Anywho, another one of my videos should be popping up on the screen soon if you want to check that out, and also a little subscribe tab. Please subscribe. Thank you for watching again, and bye again.